oh yeah, I'm writing an honors thesis, and someone asks you, oh, okay, what's it on? And you're like, One Direction. And you get mixed reactions. Some people are like, oh, are you serious? And then other people are like, oh, are you serious? From either perspective, both are usually pretty intrigued and curious as to what the hell I'm going to write about for a considerable length in terms of One Direction and screaming female fans. Haha, joke's on you. I wrote a ton about that. So I turned in my thesis about a week and a half ago, and I have my defense this coming Monday, and then I'll make some more changes to it, and then I will officially submit it and be done for good. But right now, as it stands, it's about 120 pages, and definitely the thing I am most proud of doing ever. And I'm really proud of it for a couple of reasons. Firstly, I'm proud of the topic itself. I really genuinely do love One Direction, and I think the fandom gets a lot of shit that they really shouldn't. It's also kind of this like weirdly edgy thing to write about, and I don't mean edgy because One Direction is edgy, but I just mean that this is a non-traditional academic perspective on a topic that, again, is not traditionally seen as something of intrinsic academic value. And then also I'm really proud of how hard I had to work in order to get it done. I really flew solo on a lot of it, which I was kind of expecting, but I didn't really anticipate how much that meant that I would have to sort of self-guide and self-motivate. But this project definitely came from an intrinsically motivated place. And just kind of proving to myself that I have the drive to make this sort of thing happen was just really fulfilling, and it really made me feel good about myself. Although it did also make it easier. It was definitely easier to motivate myself to work on it instead of keep a good GPA for my parents or my teachers or whoever. This project was for me and for my friends and for the One Direction community that I have really grown to respect and admire in a lot of ways. Definitely a marathon, not a sprint. I mean, if we're gonna be real, I did like maybe 20% of the work during my whole first semester, and most of that actually was like figuring out sort of what ideas I had and where I was even trying to go. Maybe 30% was spent over winter break reading book after book after book and just kind of writing up all my findings and ideas and research. And then the last, however many percentages are left, was definitely completed in the last 1 month before the thesis was due. Don't really recommend it. Because I didn't have that sort of regular guidance, like I know people who had like weekly meetings with their advisor, and I definitely didn't have that. I would just have to show up at his office when I was getting extra panicky and hope that he would poke me in the right direction, which, he did, but it just didn't happen very often. So the last 30 days, I did so much work. I definitely wrote the second half of my thesis in that time. Probably less than that. It was probably closer to 2 weeks. That's when I sent out the survey, which should have been sent out probably months earlier. Really, the One Direction fandom saved my ass by responding so quickly, and within 24 hours I had more than enough responses to work with, which was exhausting, but worth it. A common theme you will see throughout this whole process. So I did the survey, I did the analysis of it, made some graphs. The last week I was just pounding it out. I was writing up until 3 or 4 days before it was due, and then I was working on citations and editing and trying to get the layout right and figure out how I was supposed to do everything. The whole week of time felt like maybe 24 hours. Tops. I have never related more to the statement, it was the best of times and it was the worst of times. Because that is absolutely how I felt a million times over. There's no denying it. I was stressed and exhausted and anxious and worried that it wasn't going to get done, that it was bad, that I was, not saying anything worthwhile. But I was also hyper motivated, so driven. My adrenaline was through the roof the whole week. I think I was shaking more minutes out of the day than I was perfectly still. I didn't get a lot of sleep. I consumed a lot of caffeine. I was a mess and a wreck, and I was flying higher than I have ever flown. I've never felt that alive, that kind of raw energy that sustains for days at a time. It's not just you get a quick rush for 30 minutes and you're cruising. It's like it stays with you the whole time. You do one thing and you're like, okay, on to the next. You do the next thing and you're like, okay, these are the 20 more things that I have to do. Let's do it. It's kind of crazy. I totally couldn't have gotten through it without my friends. They were all super supportive. They wished me luck. They brought me cookies and food and ice cream and soothing words, which I desperately needed. My friends were crucial throughout the whole year, but in the last week especially, just helped me stay afloat. I'm not really sure how positive this whole experience has come across, but let me just sort of recap and finalize by saying, if you are thinking about writing an honors thesis and you have an idea and you think you can make it work, you should go for it. You should absolutely do it. There is nothing like it to produce something that you have had the opportunity to work so hard on and to immerse yourself in and to think about so thoroughly is just unmatched, and it's so fulfilling. This project was fulfilling, it was empowering, it was inspiring, it was motivating, it kept my attention for a whole year. It brought life to my senior year. It gave me something to do. It kept me focused. And because it was an idea that I came up with and that was important to me, it was just so validating to be able to execute it and to say, yeah, I did write a thesis about One Direction and it's damn good. TLDR, follow your dreams, even if they're unconventional, because that is what you will work the hardest to achieve, and it will be super worth it. Just do it.